Welcome to the Strategy and Soul podcast. This is the place for ambitious female entrepreneurs in service-based businesses who want to talk more about blending spirituality with strategy for your business growth. I'm your host, Danikah Rose Creative, and I'm so excited to bring to you expert guests every week from all over the world, as well as solo episodes and snack pod episodes to feed your soul in less than 10 minutes. Hello and welcome to another guest episode for the Strategy and Soul podcast with Danikah Rose Creative. And today we have Christin Sambor, an energy alchemist and healer from Maui. This is one of my most long-term clients so far who has had such incredible, amazing just experiences, healings, up levels, client attraction. Like she goes all face-to-face, especially. I just absolutely adore her projector strategy. She's nuts. Today, and part of why we are on a mission to increase the integrity within this coaching industry together as client mentor and as friend to friend, as soul to soul, and our soul contract that we know we both have. We're talking today about integrity and emotions for leaders in the coaching space, in the online industry, businesses in general, and most of all, of course, Christin, how everything links back to ourselves, our responsibility, our role, our emotions, right? So feel free to address your bio a little bit deeper. Tell us, what are you doing? What do you sell? How did you become an energy alchemist? And what does that mean to you?
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here today. And I'm blown away by the strides in myself, but I'm also blown away by how Danikah has really helped me. And so I wanted to say thank you, because I'm not the same person from when we met to when we actually started working together to who I am today. So thank you.
I'll get all emotional.
And this is about integrity and emotions, but it's also about being our best selves and seeing the best in each other. And so I left the corporate world because people weren't being nice to each other. To put it simply, people weren't being nice. And I had gone into subconscious coaching, and that was my path before energy healing. I realized that's also energy, but I started that path and realized very quickly that I couldn't stay in that corporate world anymore. And so I quit my job and I moved to Maui, because Maui is what makes me happy. It's where I want to be when I decompress, to go to the ocean, to live by the ocean, to get in the ocean, to cleanse. And so I have gotten very deep into energy work. Energy started after a breathwork session that I couldn't keep my hands together because there was so much energy in between them. And I would manipulate it before I didn't even know really what Reiki was at that time. So I started with Reiki. I have advanced many levels since then.
Many levels. Let's be real.
With lots of lessons in there. Learning discernment and learning integrity and the whole spiritual world, learning that on top of it, and then learning what's light and what's dark, and not of the light, not necessarily dark, but not the highest vibration. And that had a lot of experiences where I actually met Danikah at one of my lowest points because of someone I had hired and had in my life at that time. And so those experiences led me to be very passionate. And I just recently stepped into I've had the framework, it's been in notebooks, but really allowing that emotion to be neutral before I took action. Because if I took action from that place of being hurt as a student, my work wouldn't come across as the same. It wouldn't be as high vibration as it is now, even though it's the same content. I have more experiences to share, but there's so many different levels that I've learned from being in that scenario to be able to be here, to teach it, to experience life, and to bring awareness to other areas of our lives that we've just looked over before. So I do two main offerings. One is really just working with emotions, because everyone can have help with their emotions. But if you don't process those emotions, especially as a healer, not only it's a misuse of our power, but we get into so many different areas of our spiritual business that can go down a rabbit hole that's not so pretty very quickly with these unprocessed emotions. And so I'm here to really bring this new level of ethics, integrity, and code of conduct. Really, I think this is probably one of the words. Bring this to fruition, that we have standards and ethics and morals to live by. And the time to do that is now.
Yeah, and be more outspoken about it. I think one of the key words that really struck me and what sticks out is the neutrality. And the way that I also know that I work with clients, and how we call these soul contracts in, whether it's a soul contract, and how many times people come to us and they're like, oh yeah, like I hired someone and I gave them $10,000 and they basically did nothing for me. Or I had probably about 70% of all of my clientele has been ripped off, essentially, either one way or the other. But the real leaders that actually step into the self-responsibility about how they'd co-created that, and where they were codependent and reactive and maybe not using their discernment and their intuition, even if they felt like something was funky, they still bought into it anyway. But I really just want to highlight for everyone listening, those experiences can still be viewed from a neutral lens when you've dealt with these underlying emotions that Christin heals and she works through her clients with on a daily basis. And everything that she's talking about is really pulling us back into this perspective shift where we are looking at things objectively, and we're looking at it from a little bit of a more further away perspective. We can step back and then assess it and say, all right, well, if I've dealt with my part, then everybody else gets to now do their work, and they can then step up and they rise to their highest potential, because we've decided to do that as our core frequency, and with and uphold our boundaries, uphold our values, and really live by them. We're not just here. And I guess that's another reason why Christin was like, oh my God, there's another crazy lady who's super passionate about integrity and ethics and all the things. And it's not just like we're talking about this as if it doesn't apply to every single facet within our business. This is something that is literally ingrained within every single portion, part, space, place, conversation, energy work, any consent, every contract, everything that comes out of our mouths literally breathes life into integrity. It's one of the core pillars for both of us. So I'm just loving the conversation already.
When I have a nose itch.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
intuition. Like, we just get so fired up about this topic because both of us and even in the corporate world, as we've both been experienced for decades, like that stuff crosses over into how we were raised as entrepreneurs, how we were raised as professional business women, and that we do take this shit pretty seriously. Like, and we need to do that. Yep. It leaks into every other part of our life. And so the reason why I'm saying all of this, and I guess I'll throw a question over to you about neutrality. How do you believe that people can step into that space of taking that back seat and being more observational about what's going on within that space of their emotions not running the show, and their emotions not leading their decision making as a leader and as a healer?
So this is great. I actually just asked my Alchemize clients and Alchemize my emotional alchemy course. But
I guess it's like an upgrade. It just brings that clarity. It's like so funny when we go to talk about it, because you're like, I don't want to talk about Alchemize, but like I got to bring it up for context. So feel free to give a bit more context, because Alchemize is an amazing program that you do in group sessions online, and it is delivered week by week basis with homework. I'm just giving context here so people are like, what is Alchemize as a program? That's what it is. And people are literally coming into your program so that they can learn how to work with the elements with emotions.
Yes. And so I have a very quick process, but what I'm going to say that came back from the students just last week is being able to slow down. The one biggest takeaway that they took, which we all know, but when they slow down and they evaluate it from taking a step away, maybe 2 days, maybe an hour, 15 minutes, the amount of clarity that comes for them comes quicker, easier, because in the moment, if somebody cut you off when you're driving, you can be really mad and you can be like, I'm just going to breathe and let them pass. They have to be somewhere going very important.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can, I have to be there too. Why are you cutting me off? And then you're letting the emotion drive you, and then you become the angry driver because they just transferred the emotion to you.
Yeah,
So,
and we allow that to happen sometimes in our human self, and whatever we're not regulated, essentially our capacity to uphold that higher frequency is not there because we're so restricted in that. If we haven't taken care of ourselves and we're not emotionally regulated internally, then other things do end up penetrating our energy.
100%. So I take my clients through FIRE, which is the emotional alert. The moment that you notice something's off, when we bring awareness to something, that's when we have that awareness. So sometimes, like for my clients now, they've gone from maybe like people pleasing and getting angry that they said yes when they really wanted to say no. In the past, maybe it would be up until the moment of the event, but now they're noticing within an hour that they've said yes, or maybe in the moment, they're like, oh, I got emotion here. So we have the alert, FIRE alert. Well, if you don't put out a fire and you add some air, it gets everywhere. So you want to neutralize the air so you can actually see what the emotion wants to say. Otherwise, that fire can get out of control really quickly. And so it's really breaking down the step between alert and bringing it to like full clarity.
Yeah, so it's a breeze rather than a freaking tornado that's going to rip through everything and create a big disaster, which can still happen. As we're saying, yes, there's human elements to all of this. We're not saying that you need to have these extreme expectations on yourself, that you'll never be reactive or that you'll never have emotion. The whole point is feeling it all the way through and getting to a resolution point so that you're very deeply honest with yourself.
Yep.
And that honesty then reflects out. Right? Like
Absolutely.
It goes into every other part that you do. And so kind of moving on to one of the other things that you talked about, and feel free to close off that with the other element. But the next topic, if you can segue it to people pleasing, because I know that you have a lot of experience with helping people with people pleasing. So how does that emotional cycle close out, and then talk about people pleasing?
Perfect. So once we neutralize the emotion, you want to make a plan for it. Because if we just pour water onto the table, it's going everywhere because it can go into every crack and crevice. And a lot of times we don't want that to happen. So when we pour it into a glass, we pour it into a container. So all we're doing with the emotions, once we understand it, is putting in a boundary, having a conversation, whatever that is. And especially as people pleasers, it's also realizing what fears do we have on ourselves for putting those boundaries in. Like, what's the deeper thing there? Is it losing friends, family? That can be it is a lot for my clients, and not being seen, heard, respected. I know we've all dealt with that. And so then we move into having that come from a very grounded place to put it into action. So I'm trying to think of another example with the people pleasers. It's the confidence building too. So it's the trust and the love within ourselves, because everything comes back to heart. So when we are doing this from the love, we're doing it for the love of ourselves to put these boundaries in. We're doing it for the love of the other person. We're not responsible for the other person's lessons that we've been taking on, which have literally been giving us shoulder pain, back pain. Maybe like it's even been preventing you from stepping fully into your work. And so you're having financial pain, which is your lower back. And maybe now you're starting to have leg pain because it's you moving forward. So it can actually be a very physical reaction. And as these clients have been able to put in these boundaries, the physical symptoms also start to shift.
Yeah, and you are the queen of highlighting, intuitively scoping out within someone's energetic and physical body these physical manifestations of emotions. Do you want to riff about that? Because that is one of your specialties. Like, it's next level. And I love that I get to also have experience, by the way. A lot of my clients do their work on me so that I can actually help them to align with their business blueprint and their strategy and be able to, as you could all see, I've just discussed what Alchemize is because I've experienced Christin's energy with the way that she heals people. So we get to get so much deeper than this. But what is your opinions, beliefs, ideas, and experience with this manifesting of physical ailments? Essentially, there's like unhealth, dis-ease, people literally walking around with so much pain in their body because these emotions are unchecked.
Well, and like continuous, maybe it's not even something that it pops up every once in a while and you're like, well, it just happens every 2 years or so. And then I take a break and I'm just a little burnt out, but you're having this physical symptom every 2 or 3 years. It's actually a bigger deal because your body's screaming and you're not listening. So I had a friend and a client message me last night saying something about their arm. And I chuckled to myself because I don't even remember what arm we're talking about. And I was like, it's your right arm. It's your right arm because right side, you're trying to control something. And he's like, how do you know that?
Yeah, you're like, well, like energy says it all.
And so
I love it.
Yeah, we have these abilities to tap into like what part of the body is it? And I don't remember, and I do refer to a book every so often, but like with arms and stuff, and it's, the right side and the control. But it was really amazing that the stuff for tendonitis and tennis elbow and things like that, it's all spot on for the emotions that this person's been dealing with over time.
Yeah. And so linking back to like fears and their actual trauma that they had as a child, their programming from their childhood, all of those things.
And, people, I think one of the big things was not being able to have joy in life because you have other people's responsibilities ahead of your own. And, if you have a family, you're putting your family first, right? Like, let's be honest, like we are human as well. But at what point are we not taking care of ourselves? And so that's where there gets to be balance so that it's not one-sided.
I just love it. And do you think that you want to, I guess I could also share some of my opinions on it, because I felt that a lot of the times people want to dissociate from taking responsibility, from looking after themselves first, because that can sometimes be the darker place, or the fears are so big. And even fear of success can be really big for some people, that if, like the example you used, afraid to move forward because you're going to lose friends, like you end up making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and society likes to separate groups of humans. But frequency also can separate groups of humans, and there are some expiries on soul contracts that happen over time as we elevate our frequency and our abundance and our demeanor, the way we carry ourselves, the places that we start hanging out, they get to be different. And that is also something I've personally experienced with friends, family, and so on. And so I guess where this links for me within this conversation is that the more honest I got with my desires and my fears, and I healed these parts of myself, the further advanced I could be in a quicker way. Have you also experienced something similar where there's been this cull, and the more that you have looked in the mirror and said, well, I'm pointing at someone else, but there's three fingers pointing back to me? Like, that's one saying that comes to mind. Like, how does that feel when you've raised the standards for yourself? And do you have any advice for other people that have experienced something similar to what I'm speaking into, that where do they go with that when their standards increase and their money increases and their lifestyle increases? And we're talking about this up leveling, so to speak, that happens as we move forward.
Yeah. So not only are we up leveling on the mental plane, we're up leveling on this spiritual plane. And like you said, it's like the frequency that's coming in. And I was not like for me, like as a kid, I didn't love to play sports. I still don't love to play sports. People think because of my body type that I'm good at sports. I don't like to play sports. I never have. But can I go have a good volleyball game? Yes. But that's not what I do to choose to spend my time. But if someone wants to go to a meditation and focus on really high vibrational dinner party, I'm all for it. And so being able to pick and choose what lights us up actually drives us much further, faster. Like you were saying, it raises that frequency. It allows us to continue to go. We, I believe as a society, have put our own joy and happiness to the side. And it took me leaving the corporate world, getting out of the corporate rat race to really go, why am I actually living here? Why am I on earth? And we're not on earth to experience all this pain. We're not on earth to take medicine every day. We're not on earth to not experience emotions. Like people are taking medicines for all of this for a quick fix. And sometimes there is a quicker fix, but a lot of times it's the slower gradual fix is the lasting change. I healed myself of migraines, like very severe migraines, by the foods, the energy work, the stress levels. And we can change our life and up level because I stopped people pleasing too. And people pleasing was a big migraine symptom because I really wanted to say no. And if I had a migraine, I could.
Interesting how that manifested for you. You're like, hey, so here's a physical excuse about the reason why you can't do that thing. And you're like, oh, great. And mine used to be, by the way, I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And if I didn't want to do something and my mind would literally trigger this chain of reaction where I would overexert myself. I would overwork myself and I would burn myself out in a very short amount of time, intentionally, but subconsciously. And I wasn't fully conscious of all of this. And so I would be, I'd be in burnout. Most of the time I'd be, and eventually that manifests as adrenal fatigue. And then I would legitimately be tired. And why was I doing this? I also, as you know, and other people that are listening by now, they would know, some of you, in 2016, I was a heavy drinker. And I don't mean heavy as in I would get wasted. I would drink consistently almost every day, a glass of wine here, a glass of wine there. Oh, I need one to go to sleep. Oh, and I've talked about this in other episodes. If you have a look at my history of podcasts, you'll see some information about that on a deeper topic. The reason I'm bringing this into this context right now is because I wasn't in integrity and I wasn't being honest about my desires, my fears, my emotions. I wasn't holding myself to the high standards that I knew deep down that I was worthy of. But it's one thing to say it, and it's a completely different thing to take action on it and to move yourself into a space where you're not only aware of it and you're like, yep, these are my standards. I'm worthy. I'm worthy. You can do as many lucky girl meditations and affirmations as you want, but your subconscious mind is still working to prove to you that those beliefs that are programmed in the back of your mind are the truth, that your ego is working to protect you and that you want to stay the same. And our brain is like, you want to stay the same? You want to stay the same? Here's the cycle again. Here's another manifestation. Here you go, Danikah. You are so exhausted, you will never reach your goal. And so until I started disbelieving that and disproving it and taking the action to heal why that remained a part of my cycle, nothing changed for me. That was a huge catalyst for how all of this business is how it is now for me.
Yes.
Really massive.
So as you were talking, there were two things that came in, that when we're in those burnout stages, when we're continuing to push, when we're subconsciously doing it, who are we around? Who else is influencing? Like, it's not even necessarily your energy that's actually influencing. You're obviously connecting at it at a subconscious level because your mind is trying to prove something, but we can rewrite what that is. So if we change, like I love Maui Gym sunglasses, they have different lenses. So I'm like, if we change the lens and we still look at the same picture, we see it differently. And so where can we shift that color within our vision to see a little opening? How many times have we walked, in a store and not been able to find the one thing we were looking for? We asked someone, they're like, it's right here. You didn't see it?
Yeah.
It can be right in front of our eyes, right under our nose, but we have to open that awareness center to be able to see it. And we get to. We don't have to do any of this.
Yeah, we get to choose to do it. That's a fact. That is our free will in action. I love that you said that. And I think there's that like talking about when people are either enabling it or they're denying you of your desires, or your environment is not reflecting back to you what you deeply believe to be true. There's choices that need to be made to adjust all of those. It's not just about like, oh, I have this abusive relationship or my life is trash, I'm just going to pretend that it's not and change the lens and put on my rose-colored glasses. We are not talking about spiritual bypassing here. I know that's not Christin's intention. And I know that some people listening may have their brain automatically go, yeah, like I can just change the way that I think. Again, it's not about like saying as many affirmations as you want. Sometimes your literal physical environment, the people you hang around, the conversations that you allow into your life, the level of abuse, the integrity of other people around you, like all of these things are very important. And I really want to close out the podcast episode by swinging back to that topic of how this is manifesting between client mentor. Now we've addressed how it's manifesting for ourselves and in our lives, and we want to come around to, you know, having more boundaries and that code of conduct in our businesses. How is this emotions, integrity, being in full honesty, linking to showing up as a leader and serving from that place? And of course, we've discussed already non-reactivity, but what are some other tools and techniques and tips that you can offer for people to implement that as a leader in their business?
So this is great. It's what was coming through and in alignment is as I've become more aware of my emotions, I also have these different bodily changes that when I'm around certain people, I get like an upset stomach, or if there's someone that's lying to their spouse about what they're doing, I physically get reactions, and it's almost like I become allergic to being in that vibration.
And that's the fire. That's the fire element that
yeah.
you're talking about, because that's your red flag. That's your alert system. That's your body. And now that you're listening to it, because you've cleared all of these emotional things that have stopped you from tapping into that intuition, you trust yourself. You feel confident that your channel is true. And I just, that's such a good point, because you get that, like, it's not even an emotional reaction. It's a physical where you're like, oh, I don't know how I can like stay in this. You can just notice that misalignment within your system by feeling uncomfortable. I usually get like sweaty palms, and I'm like, something's a bit fishy. And I just know that I can trust that now because of years of practicing making a lot of mistakes and being in environment, like, you know, living life with my naivety. Sometimes I can be really innocent and I go into things very innocently. I used to believe and think that people think and they respond to things the way that I do, which was so, you know, emotionally immature. And that's okay, we grow. But it did land me in a lot of hot water at times when I didn't realize that I was in environments that were not serving me and that was toxic or completely a waste of time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
But is it a waste when we learn something? It's really not.
No.
You see where I'm going.
And to be an integral leader, to be an integral coach, healer, guide, if I get that sign from my body and I decide to continue to have a conversation with this person, to continue to entertain them, I'm not being integral with my own needs and desires. So when I ask for more confirmation from my guides, am I going to get it? Like, they already told me. My body already told me that this is not in alignment. And so we have free will. We have the choice in front of us. And are you continuing to choose the path that's easiest, or are you choosing the path of alignment?
It reminded me of this quote, and I think I made it my cover photo like maybe 8 years ago or something on one of my old profiles. And it's like, the level of discomfort if that's the topic, but it was along the lines of how uncomfortable does it have to get before you choose to actually change something? And I was like, whoa, that flipped my mind at that time, literally going back like 9 years or something, because I've realized that the faster I made that decision, the quicker I was in alignment. And by not just making the decision, but taking the action to back it up is what people to say is a quantum leap. We're like, oh, let's quantum leap our leadership. Let's quantum leap our money. It's literally just alignment in action. It's precise action that you take in alignment with what your body is telling you in a signal, even if it doesn't sound logical, even if it isn't something that you think is appropriate. For example, some client relationships do need to end. And there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of expectations, there's contracts. So there's that strategic part that goes into it. It's not just on the soul side. And sometimes it's out of integrity to stay with a client. Do you want to touch on the scarcity part that can come into play when you don't act on these boundaries that you know are necessary? When you think, oh, if I stay with that client, then I can have that money. Or if this happens, then there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
I'm like, there's like two things that are really kind of coming through here. And one of those is, as the coach, as the healer, we have different skills and we have different vibrations, and really understanding how we best serve our clients. And we all know, we've had that friend who's like, especially as we're little kids, I don't like that person, or Joey's not good for you, or Susie's not good for you. I don't like them. They're not a good friend to you. And we put on this, yeah, they are. Don't worry about it. They're so kind. They're nice to me. They're trying to use you. And we tend to like just not be able to see what's happening until something, pressure, like diamonds are formed under pressure, we can actually see the light. And then we're like, oh, they really were mistreating me or using me. And I'm bringing this, like, that's an easy example, but as a coach, we know our abilities. And if that person's not able to listen to your frequency and your sessions are becoming more pressure than they are fun and airy, and I say that in like, not everything's going to be like full of joy and light all of the time, but at the end of the session, it should still feel lighter.
Easy. I guess I just want to speak into that a little bit and say it can still be easy even if it's uncomfortable. And I believe as a facilitator, it's part of my role as a mentor that I take very seriously, that I'm holding a very safe and sacred space for that person to have an easy process, even if it's painful, even if it's messy, even if it's confusing or disturbing or traumatic, that it's bringing something up that's desiring to be healed in a big way. It still can be that ease frequency, which I feel is like the lightness that you're talking about, is that they come away from it and go, that person really helped me.
Yep.
That was safe for me.
I've had clients where it's so like we move through heavy energy, but at the end of the session, I'm lit up and I'm excited and I can't wait to do it again with them because I know what a massive transformation is. And then there's other clients that are so much resistance within the session and after the session. And at what point can we be integral with our business, with ourselves, with where we spent, because we're choosing to allow that into our lives. So where can we really see that it's no longer in either party's best interest to continue moving forward? They need a different frequency, and in order to make a change, if they desire that change. And so it's hard to let it go when you've had a client for a long time who continues to come back and you've loved to see their progress over time. I've had to walk away from mentors for various reasons. And I also had a mentor that I would still call her if I need to today, but I don't need to be around her all of the time just because the frequencies have shifted. If there's something that she can help me with, great. But if not, we're both okay with the space in between and can still be friends. The times where we're only saying yes to clients, even because there's resistance, is a form of scarcity of, oh my gosh, like if they don't purchase, then I don't know who is. And so I've noticed literally in the last 24 hours, actually, where can I, like, what am I afraid of if I say no to a client or a potential client? What am I afraid of if I send out these offers? I know that there are people that are ready to work with me, and I've been the one that's like, okay, let me sit on it some more. And I'm afraid that there's not going to be this massive line of people. So it's scarcity in an abundance way.
I totally feel that, because you can feel like the client portal and you're like, yes, and I've done the work on the clarity and I know my offer back to front and I know all the things, and you're great at sales, you know all these things. And then it's like, but the consent, are they going to reject me? So am I rejecting myself by not allowing that to open? And it's such a beautiful share, because at any point this can play out. It's not just that you've had this realization and it's going to go away forever, or that you've never had this realization before, which I also feel is true for you. But every time we level up, we get presented with an opportunity to see these exact same pain points, exact fears, exact cycles. They never just dissipate off into the ethers. And I don't even want to say never. I think there's some of them where we can even just hear the tiniest little fire element there, and we get that, and we're like, you're pretending to be a red flag. I already know the signs. And then we just peace out, and you don't react to it. You don't buy into the story. You don't repeat that thought. You don't even get into the stories attached to it. And so you've got such emotional regulation and awareness that those stories don't get to run the show anymore. And that is after some time, depending on what fear it is or which belief we're talking about here. That's why I work a lot in self-concept, as you know, and we talk about how if you persist with the new self-concept, eventually your subconscious will also catch up, and that will be your dominant operating program. But if you are still choosing these misaligned clients, choosing situations that you know that people are not respecting you, you're choosing to take on money just because it's for the sake of the money. But what about having space on your schedule and trusting that that is filling up with the most aligned clients, with the highest frequency? And that for some of us, it does take time, especially when we've increased prices. It actually has a gestational period where you're going to need to integrate other things within your physical system, physical environment. It could be the tech that you're using. It could be as simple as the way that you are taking clients in. Do you have application forms set up? What is your strategy? Okay, so now we're getting into the nitty gritty. What does it actually take? People always say, oh, I want to have a 20K month. I want to have a 30K month. And I'm like, all right. And here are all the gaps in the foundation that need to be corrected and tweaked and adjusted and loved and applied and implemented before that stability is even there to call that person in. Doesn't matter how good your website is, photos, none of that. And then the energy piece that has to back that strategy. So we could get into like a whole other podcast episode about all of this. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, what is the impact of a lower client, right? So if you have a lower client and you're not getting further with them, and it's actually like, it's almost to the point where it starts to wreak havoc on your brain and your subconscious, that the client's not getting the results because the client's maybe not putting in the work. So if you, because it's both parties. The healer
Always.
doesn't heal the client, they do, but we provide the space for it. And so if that client, now we have all of this like subconscious stuff going on, which is a lower vibration. And so on the emotional scale, you just keep going down. It impacts your other clients too, because if it impacts your brain waves, your ability to, what you need to recover from, the energy you need to recover from that client. I could do like 3 high vibrational clients in one day, or I could do 1 low vibrational client. You're tapping out on energy when you're not in alignment.
Yeah, and I think another really easy analogy that I want to share is It's masking. It's like a Band-Aid. And if you just continue, it's same with physical symptoms. You just put a Band-Aid, medicate, subdue, suppress. That shit is exhausting. It is harder to be something that you are not than to just own every single part of your frequency, whether it's lower, higher, it doesn't matter. We're not causing a separation here. What I'm talking about is still operating from that neutral frequency where you can simply say to yourself, if I was in full integrity and I am really honest with myself about the level that I am at and my capacity to hold the correct frequency and space for that person, is it true, yes or no? And you ask your body, you ask your guides, you ask your soul, your higher self for that information, and you will get that answer. And for as long as you want to continue to pretend that things are in alignment and that everything is okay, and you want to continue showing up and wearing these masks, y'all, let's be real. Your sales are going to continue to decrease because your frequency that you're putting out is not magnetizing the soul clients that are coming past your page. They're in your stories, they're in the DMs with you, and they're like, oh, something just feels a bit off right now. And they will just recognize that as yes, maybe, not right now, not sure, or a no. And what we want is, heck yes, oh my God, I've been looking for you everywhere. This is exactly what I get this all the time because I don't post if I don't feel like it. I don't show up on my stories incessantly because I don't like that as part of my strategy. I don't want to show up in stories every single day. So you'll catch me or you won't. That's how it is. And I'm okay with that because my self-concept fully backs that belief because the energy is there. The strategy is just a natural byproduct to me. And it's not because I don't care about the strategy. That's so important to me. But what is the most important is that when I'm with you, I'm 100, I'm 110, I'm 150, I'm expanding. It's like when we amplify that energy and we're like, and a million times and a billion times and infinity. And I'm like, yes, every single interaction that I have needs to be infinity. Otherwise I ain't it. It won't be it.
You are connected to the impact that you're making. And so when we connect to the impact of lower vibrational clients versus connecting to the impact that we're making on high vibrational clients, they're going to go share more. They're going to go do more with the world. I'm very passionate about the plants and the animals, but specifically marine life, the turtles, the whales. I love the leopards and the zebras and all the land animals too. But my impact is being able to utilize those, I was like the spirits, the beings of the highest light, and bring that into like the highest healing frequency. And Danikah and I have definitely talked about this a lot of if we are here to make this massive impact, we get to have the funds to be able to do so. Yeah. And so that is aligning to the highest vibration of ourselves so that we can make, like, what can make today more impactful than yesterday? That's it. Like, if we just live our life by the amount of impact that we're making.
Consistently. Oh my God. I love it. I love it. And so let's wrap it up because I'm going to talk to you for like 4 hours in one podcast episode. I swear to God. Christin and I, we have just cultivated such amazing like relationship in the sense that it's all on the table. Like we could talk to everyone about so many different things right now, and I would love to. But let's tell people how they can find you. You're doing VIP day retreats for people traveling to Maui. It's incredible offer, and that's like a full day healing, all the things we've just talked about. But Christin Sambor on Instagram. Do you want to throw in any other links or freebies? You've got a values worksheet, which I adore. She's very technical from this like corporate training. So if you need it, look at me just selling you. I'm like, hang on a second, just let me do it. Let me do it. Okay, so like Christin has this values worksheet, which you can download for free. It's in an Excel, and you can literally get so clear on your business values and your personal values and step into alignment so much faster. Also by booking a one-on-one session with her to go through that values worksheet, because a lot of times we say, oh, I like this and I like that, but are they the deepest, truest, most aligned desires?
We all have all of the values. We all see them, but how they show up for us and what we truly value, this is the worksheet that can help you get super clear. Because the people who are anxiety ridden and overstressed, when they look at the worksheet, they can either easily see where their focus needs to be, or they see how spread thin they've been. And so it's a great worksheet. It's the number one exercise, first module we do within Alchemize, is getting super clear. And it's the same worksheet that I do with them. So you get it for free to be able to start to see. And there's lots of, Danikah's seen it, there's a whole lot of information in there. So it's not just go take a quiz. There's actually information in there for you to be able to process.
Immediate alchemizing, it's immediate transformation. And I think the most thing that really impacts me about that particular worksheet that you have is that it's an immediate fast track to self-honesty, that you actually get clarity on being so freaking honest with yourself about what is working and what isn't, so you can make immediate actionable changes. It's all about the action, guys. So if you liked this episode and you love Christin's vibe and you want to tap into any of her amazing energy work, she's a phenomenal woman, online, in person, whatever you need, she's there. So I'm just like pitching you, like, go for it.
I will send you the link so that you can include it in the episodes. My website is Christin Sambor. I spell it differently, so you'll see that. But I made it easy across all platforms, across YouTube, everything like that. But I will send Danikah the free link and the all of the handles things.
Yeah, we'll pop them down in the descriptions below for anyone. Please leave us some reviews. If you have questions, our DMs are always open. We love chatting to ideal clients, people that have questions, anyone that just needs a bit. And yeah, get those calls booked and get into this idea that everything is open, expanded. You have the ability to tap into so much more after you've addressed everything that we've talked about in these episodes. I'm just so encouraging any woman that's listened to this to get really deep into their emotions and get this clarity that really just fast forwards a lot of pain that you do not need to deal with when you are a leader in business and when you are healing and holding space for other people. And yeah, hold those high standards. You are worthy. You so deserve it. And your soul is asking you, especially if you've aligned and you've listened to this entire episode, you must take the action required. Thank you so much, Christin. This was awesome.
Thank you. And I'm just excited for everyone to be stepping into their highest version of themselves, to the highest leadership, to the highest code of conduct that you could carry, because that's what's going to change this planet. So thank you for your time, for listening, for being here, because I know that I know that these topics definitely are going to hit some points with you. I had shivers and chills as we were talking, as Danikah was sharing, and I'm just so grateful that we're here changing the planet together. So, and thank you so much for having me on. I tell her this all the time, but I cannot wait to hug you in person.
I know. Oh my God. And we're going to have these worldwide retreat events that everybody can just collaborate. It always eventually these massive desires and a huge blueprint that I have for this global business, which it's already spreading. I think I'm working with 6 different continents at the moment, at least 6 different time zones. I must say that. And so, yeah, it's really quite a journey to get to a point where we get to have all the things. And I'm just so grateful that you've been even able to share a bit about your work as well. I'm obsessed. So yeah, take care, everyone. I'm going to stop talking now.
Bye.
Oh, hey, it's me again. Thank you so much for tuning in to that episode. If you loved it, feel free to leave comments, questions, or reviews. We are also not shy about supporting our community and have a free Facebook group called Conscious Business Creatives. You can find the links down in the show notes there. It's for spiritually inclined, ambitious female entrepreneurs who are in service-based businesses and are looking to give and receive support, pitch your offers, and work with me as your psychic business strategist. If you would like access to any other resources, feel free to send me a DM and let's work together.